I am an old fart, and I have a guilty pleasure, which is I like knives. I'm not an expert or an official representative of anybody. I just like knives. I have a collection of small folding pocket knives, and this is one of the videos where I'm giving a little tour through my collection. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to step a little bit outside the normal parameters of my collection and talk about this knife, which is a DPX Hest. This is not at all typical of the knives I collect, so why? What's this doing here? Well, I've always carried a few emergency tools in my car, a tow cable and a screwdriver and a few things like that, and I'm trying to downsize and have what I need, but less weight and less space. I wanted a heavy-duty knife to have in the car. I have occasionally in the past had to cut things on the roadside for camping or roadside emergencies or helping someone. I've had to cut a rope, a strap, things like that. And I want to be able to continue to do that. And I wanted a knife that could be pushed hard, abused, pry a little bit with it, but one that I would actually be willing to use heavily. Because, in theory, some of my other knives, like my Incosi, for example, or the Sebenza 25, those are heavy-use knives. The trouble is that they're so beautiful that I was reluctant to use them. I would always have to stop and do the analysis and say, is it worth it? If I rescue this person, they'll reward me and I'll be rich and famous, but I might scratch my Incosi. Tough call. So I wanted a heavy-use knife that I don't fall in love with to the point where I'm unwilling to heavily use it. Is that what people mean when they say a beater? Is that what I was talking about? Did I want a beater? So anyway, here is that knife. I was aware of the DPX Hest, and I came across one used from a retiring first responder. This is that knife, and it now lives permanently in my glove box. So let's do a little tour of the features of this knife, and then we'll talk about some likes and dislikes. So formally, this is a DPX Hest F, that's Hest/F, triple black model. I don't know if this is a version 1, 2, or 3. It comes in several versions. Since it's used and I got it from somebody who had used it for quite a long time, I will guess that it is a version 1. I don't know that for sure. It's a titanium frame lock knife, thumb stud opening, so quite traditional in that sense. Plus an extra feature, which has this lock here, this circular lock, which locks the frame lock. So we open the knife, and then if we rotate that lock, we cannot unlock the frame lock. So it extra locks the lock in a locked lock position for locking the lock. And, for all those times that you're afraid the heavily locked frame lock isn't locked enough. If you're getting the impression that I'm not convinced I need that feature, you're right. But anyway, it's there. The size is kind of important. Now, this is not a big knife, but it is a heavy knife. It is thick. Let's compare it to my standard kind of everyday knife. There's a mini Griptilian. It is thick. It's heavy. It's heavy duty. So let's look at the overall length, for example. Here in the International Standard Knife Measuring System, the pocket calculator, you can see that it's about 1.1 pocket calculators. Compare that to some other knives. My standard mid-size knife, the Benchmade Mini Griptilian, you can see it's quite a bit larger than that. So it's a large knife, not a mid-sized. And we'll compare it to some large knives. There's an Incosi I mentioned earlier, quite a bit smaller than an Incosi. So here's another large knife, Paramilitary 2, quite a bit smaller than a PM2. So it's either a large mid-size knife or a small large knife. The blade is thick, 50 millimeters thick blade, compared to the Incosi, which is considered a heavy-use knife and is only 30 36 millimeters thick. So that is a heck of a hunk of steel there. Likewise, the weight. This is 139 grams. And that's dense. This is similar or heavier than larger knives. So for example, this 139 grams. The Inkosi is 142, so they're almost exactly the same weight, but look how much bigger the Inkosi is. So this is heavier. And if you look at the PM2, and the PM2 is larger, but it's lighter. PM2 is only 106 grams compared to 139. This is a heavy knife. It's not just heavy in weight, it is heavy duty, and you get that sense every time you handle it. The blade is 3.1 or 3.2 inches, 80 millimeters long, so it's over the 3-inch mark that matters in some places. And the steel is interesting. It's Nylox steel, which I didn't know much about, and I did a little bit of reading, and what I've learned is that it is a steel that was designed for toughness, yet remains quite corrosion resistant, which is exactly what you're looking for in a roadside heavy use knife. This is not going to break easily, and it can get wet, and it can sit damp in the glove compartment for a couple of days until I remember to clean it, and it's going to do just fine. The body is a titanium slab. The presentation side is knurled G10, I think, quite heavily textured. Another interesting thing about the knife is it's got a bunch of multi-tool features, and some of them are probably quite cool, and some of them, I'm not sure. So it's got a glass breaker on the end, so you can't really see it here, I imagine, but there's a tungsten point on the end of that little hex nut there, so glass breaker. Bottle opener, of all things, on the back of the blade. I could see that. Not having a bottle opener to get my my bottle of Keith's IPA open is an emergency, and this is an emergency knife. Wire strippers, I'm not sure I'm going to find a use for that, but there they are. And then this is a little weird, I think. This hole is not actually a lanyard hole. It is, as you can see there, it's hexagonal. There we are. It's hexagonal, and it is, in fact, exactly the size of a standard hex bit. So I could put a hex bit in there and wrench it around. I'm not sure the point of that. If I had bits with me, I'd have a handle. But anyway, there it is. Clip is a deep carry clip. I like deep carry clips. Heavy steel. My normal fondness for deep carry clips probably doesn't apply to this knife. This isn't going to be in my pocket. It's going to be in my glove compartment in my car. As I said, there is sort of a lanyard hole. This hex bit hole can serve as a lanyard hole. Of course, if you've got a lanyard through it, you're not going to use it for hex bits, but I can't imagine doing that anyway. Is it ambidextrous? No, very much not. Frame locks rarely are. It does have double-sided thumb studs, so you could open it with your left hand. In fact, even I can do that, as awkward as I am with my left hand. But it is certainly right-hand close, right-hand clip. The clip is not movable, so no, very much not an ambidextrous knife. And finally, manufacturing, it's made by Lion Steel in Italy. I'm not sure the relationship between DPX and Lion Steel, but I do think Lion Steel is the manufacturer for DPX. So that's kind of a tour through the specifications. So some likes and dislikes. Well, let's talk about likes. What do I like? Well, this is exactly what I was looking for. This is a heavy use, no worry tool for having in my car for dealing with the minor roadside emergencies that I'm qualified to deal with. I like the opening. It's slow and deliberate. It's kind of Sebenza-like or Inkosi-like in that you don't flick it open. You open it slowly, deliberately, and you get a very confident, secure clunk. And you know it's locked. So I like that. The blade holds a good edge. It wasn't in great shape when I got it, so I sharpened it on the KME system, and as you can see, it took a very nice edge. There's a good mirror polish there, and from what I have read, it's tough and will last quite a while. Some of the extra tools that come on this knife, I think I'm going to like having. I think that that bottle opener will probably find a use eventually. And the glass breaker, absolutely. I can see myself being glad I had that. A few things I don't like about the knife. First of all, the DPX has a hell of a lot of Hests. They have a very confusing array of names for this knife. This is a /F. There's other models other than the F, and then there's names for the different color characteristics and so on. This one is called the triple black. It's not easy to look at their catalog and figure out which one you want, or even which one you have. I don't know if this is a version 1, 2, or 3, for example, and I don't know how to tell. Next to this is a triple black model. Now this is what I could get. I found this used from a first responder, but this triple blackness is not a feature I would have chosen. It says in their website, this is designed for military and police where they want a, quote, low visual impact. Okay, I guess I can see that for some people. For me, that seems like an invitation to lose it in the dark. And since I would see myself using it in the dark on the roadside more often than other places, that's exactly the wrong design feature. So I think I'll probably put a fob made out of reflective cord through that lanyard hole. Haven't done that yet, but seems like a good idea. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I like sort of understated, unadorned knives. I don't particularly like the serial number and everything here on the side of the knife. I certainly don't care to have the website of the manufacturer. Really? Really? I don't think I have another knife that has that on it. So I don't care for a lot of the writing that's on the blade, and I especially dislike the logo on the clip, which is a laughing human skull wearing a baseball cap. I have a lot of problems with that. I don't care for the skull. It kind of weakens my argument that this is a tool, not a weapon. I'm not carrying knives as weapons. I'm carrying them as tools. And so I try to stay away from knives that are designed to look like weapons, and the skull kind of spoils that. And then second, and even worse, I hate baseball caps. So I don't care for that. Finally, this double lock. As I kind of implied before, I'm not really sure what problem that solves. Okay, the knife's locked open. I don't see that slipping. Do I really need to be able to lock the frame lock? Is that a problem I'm going to have? Probably not in the very occasional use I'd make of this knife. Now, on the other hand, the cost of that is that it's constantly slipping on. It's very easy to touch it, and if you move that thing even a tiny amount, it prevents the lock from disengaging. So pretty much every time I go to close this knife, I discover I can't, and I have to go down here and make sure the lock is set all the way off, and then it'll come off. And even then, just because of that extra engagement surface that's part of this mechanism, the unlocking is always a little bit kind of scrapey and clunky. Opening this knife is quite Savenza-like. Closing it is not. Scrape, clunk. There we go. So for me, I don't care for that double lock. I could certainly do without it. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Let's run through my my internationally unknown knife rating system. Now this is going to be just for fun. Clearly, this is not designed as a non-threatening gentleman's knife. I feel guilty running it through that rating system, but I'm going to. So NTGK, non-threatening gentleman's knife. I usually do that in two parts: NT, non-threatening, and GK, gentleman's knife. So for non-threatening, the good news is you can open it slowly. Okay? And I think that's important to be non-threatening. And unlike, say, flippers, you can open it with two hands. And again, I think that's important for being non-threatening. That's it for the good. For the bad on non-threatening, it has aggressive styling, jagged shapes and so on. It's black, so it's clearly designed for ninjas or for doing sneaky things in the dark. Notches, jaggies all over it, and that goddamn skull on the clip. So Sorry, this thing looks threatening, and being able to open it slowly doesn't save very much. So I'm going to give it a D for non-threatening. As a gentleman's knife, it's going to do worse than that. So the good is nothing as a gentleman's knife. The bad, it's big, it's ugly, it's scary looking, it's heavy, it weighs down your pocket, and what is visible outside your pocket as you're walking around wearing your suit is a skull wearing a baseball cap. So I'm going to give it an F as a gentleman's knife, and overall then as an NTGK, an F. Yeah, this is a fail as an NTGK. Now, that's not why I have it. I have it as a worker, and it's great for that. As an NTGK, Next rating, my KN rating, which is what will my knife nerd friends think of this knife. I think they'll like it. The good, it's got some cool extras. Bottle opener, glass breaker, hex bit turner. It's kind of cool. People like Swiss Army knives. The double lock, they'll probably think that's neat until it annoys them by locking when they don't want it. The smooth opening is very nice. Knife nerds will love that. And there are knife nerds who are really obsessed with making sure that knives are used heavily. So this is obviously not a safe queen. This is a knife that was first and foremost designed as a user. Heavy steel or titanium body, grippy G10, the double lock, the Nylock steel. Nobody's going to accuse this knife of being a safe queen, and a lot of knife nerds would like that. On the bad side, it does have that annoying tendency to be locked when you didn't want it to be locked, when you go to close it, and you really can't flick it, and that's important to some knife nerds. So that'll pull it down a little bit. I'm going to give it a B as a knife nerd rating. And finally, my CMR, cut myself rating. It's going to get an A because I have never cut myself on this knife. It's designed in a way that I'm not hurting myself with it, and that's a good thing. So in summary, this is a heavy use knife. That's what it's for. No pretensions, not trying to be pretty. It's very sturdily built, and it has some additional utility tools that are potentially useful. It's heavy, it's frightening looking. It's the opposite of a non-threatening gentleman's knife, but it has a place. I have one in my car for emergency roadside use, and can't easily think of a better choice for that. Thanks for joining me. See you again.